Hello everyone, my name's Duane, I'm a recovered drug addict.
Duane.
And it's good to be back in a meeting in Northampton. This is like my old stomping ground here. I don't live round here now, you know. As a result of seeking recovery, I ended up in a different part of Northamptonshire, and but all my family are still here. I've got two little girls that live, about a mile up the road, and my nan and my family, and all my using was within about 2 square miles of this building. And certainly the last of my using was in amongst the flats just across the road. This is where I ended up, and I spent the last 6 months to a year of my using. And I was just thinking back while sitting here when the last time I shared here was, and I don't know if it was the last time, but about 3 years ago, almost to the day, I shared here 4 days clean. And the reason I shared here 4 days clean was I'd had an experience, and as a result of some people in this room, I was directed towards a treatment centre. And I'd been given a bed, and the very next day, I was going into that treatment centre for 6 months. And I looked very different to what I look today. And I weighed 9 stone. I hadn't had a haircut for a while. I hadn't shaved, and I'd just come back from 3 days in a field camping with a load of other addicts. And that's really where, since that day, I haven't relapsed, which really is a miracle, really, when I look back over my experience of the previous 10 years. My story is one of relapse, continual swearing off, continual saying never again, continual, swearing on my kid's life and doing all different things so that I wouldn't use, and always ended up in exactly the same spot. Head in my hands. How the fuck did I get here again? And so I feel very grateful that I've escaped today, because this year I've lost 2 people that I was closely connected to. One not so closely, but one I was very close with. I spent a lot of time in treatment with, and this illness got him. 6 treatment centres, 35 years on the tear. In the end, it caught up with him, and he's no longer here. And that's what we're dealing with. It's not. We come here and we find some freedom, and life gets good pretty quick. That's my experience. There's people out there dying. I just drove in from out of town and drove down the main drag where I spent some time, drinking when my using was what we call manageable, say, and there's just poorly people everywhere. You see them. And this meeting being this size tells me 2 things. There's a lot of poorly people about, but also the message of Cocaine Anonymous is getting out there, that there's some people that have found some freedom. And not only have they found some freedom, they're going out and trying to carry that message to the next person so that they find some freedom. And that's a beautiful thing, Yeah. I started drinking and using for no other reason than the fact it was there and it was available and it looked like fun. I'm from a family of drinkers, and from a very early age, all I wanted to do was be like my uncles. And when I found alcohol and spliff, I didn't find it, and it didn't fix anything within me. It was just fucking brilliant. I loved it. I loved the effect produced by alcohol, spliff, then cocaine, then crack cocaine. And I just continued on with it. I was okay, and I used, and at the beginning there was no consequences, everything was all right. I could go to work and I managed successfully, and I earned my money and I spent it all, and that's what normal, 18-year-old, 19-year-old people do. And I continued on. It was one big party, woohoo, But at 23, I met someone, and by 23, I've been smoking crack for around about 5 years, fairly regularly. I've been drinking heavily. I've been using powdered cocaine to allow me to drink more so that I could stand in the pub longer. And at 23, I'd recognised that I was never really going to get very far the way that I was going. Every time I got money, I spent it. No matter how hard I tried, I could give my bank card to my mum or, tell the boss just to give me this little bit or whatever. It didn't matter what strategy I tried, I got it and I spent it. And I understood it. I wasn't really getting very far in life. I'd watched people grow up a little bit and I wasn't. And I met a girl and she said very quickly into the relationship, because I'm very good at lying. Yeah, I'm very good at manipulating and lying. And so I hid a lot of what I was doing from this girl, and she was like, I want to have a baby with you. And I went, that's what's going to stop me from drinking and using. So at 23, my eldest daughter comes along, and I hold her in my arms and say, I'm never doing it again. 2 days later, I'm sitting in a crack house. Where was the willpower? Where was that firm resolution? And again, 2 years, 18 months, 2 years later, my next daughter, and I make exactly the same promise. Never again. This is it now. And a couple of days in, I'm doing exactly the same thing. That's just continual cycle of swearing off, never doing it, swearing to my missus, I'm not doing it again, it's going to be different this time. Whether it be 3 days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, bang, I relapse and, and that's, my story doesn't really change from that. It doesn't matter how many different relationships I got in, how many different jobs I got, how many different pairs of trainers I got, it doesn't matter. It was always the same result. And so from 23 to 33, I spent 10 years making them sweet promises that it was going to be different, that I was going to change, and it never was. And in our readings it talks about the problems we see, it consists of an obsession of the mind. And that wasn't always the case for me. I didn't have to obsess about drinking and using to go and use. There was times, I recall 2 specific times where there was no obsessing about a drink or a drug. I wasn't holding on. I wasn't overthinking about it. I wasn't thinking too much. I wasn't thinking about it at all. But I ended up doing it. And that's when I read chapter 3. That's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I get from that. They're talking about guys that were not thinking about drinking and using, but were drinking and using. And so, relationship failed with my kids. And I meet a woman, and again, I hide a lot from her. And she wants to get married, and I think, yes, bonus. Got a good life, and I'm doing an okay job. I've got a good house. I've got a nice car. I've got my kids in my life, and I'm managing to keep a bit of a rein on my sprees, And on our wedding night, by this time I'm already in CA. I'm already in and out of the rooms of CA. And on our wedding night, before the lead up to the wedding, she's worried. She's worried about whether I'm going to disappear or not. And I said it's going to be all right. And that day there was no thought. I was really grateful. I was really happy. I was over the moon that I was marrying this woman who was actually I'd known her from school, and I suffered what the book describes as a peculiar mental twist, where the thought come into my head about maybe it might be okay to smoke crack. out of nowhere, yeah? Out of nowhere. You know, I hadn't been obsessing about it, hadn't been holding on, it just come from nowhere. And so with that, I go and pick up the box with all the cards, and I go to the honeymoon suite, and I'm just casually taking the money out of the cards, putting it in my wedding suit jacket, and my new wife comes through the door of the honeymoon suite, and she sees what's going on, and she knows, because I've done it many, many times before. She breaks down, and I step over her, and I go and get in my car, and I'll go and sit and smoke crack for 7 hours. You know, no thought. You know, and I recall exactly the same thing happened to me. And I've been in the rooms of CA a couple of years by this time. That marriage had ended 5 months later. Okay, and marriage had ended. I was trying to get recovery and relapsing, doing that very unsuccessfully, relapsing a lot, and coming back, picking up white key rings and then going again and spending again another month or 6 weeks out. And you know, my kids had been removed from me by this time, and I'd been given an opportunity to have my 2 children overnight in this little flat that I'd managed to rent. You know, because as I said, when I don't relapse, yeah, my life gets pretty good quick. Yeah, I work better. I'm happy. You know, I don't hold on. I'm not. You know, I hate not using. It's cool. My life's all right. I feel good. And so, within about 30 days, I've managed to get this little flat together. And their mum said to me, "If you get to 30 days clean, you can have your 2 children stay overnight." Boy, I was happy. Yeah, I was so happy. And the Friday they were due to come, I was at work, and we finished a couple of hours early. And as we drove up here, past the hotel, I said, "Drop me off here, guys." And my mind went, "Just go and smoke 1 stone." Never ever did I ever smoke 1 stone. And I went into this place and I bought 1 stone. 3 hours later, my phone's ringing and it's my daughter. And I switched that phone off. Yeah. And I hadn't been obsessing about drinking and using that day. I was really looking forward to the opportunity of seeing my 2 children again, you know. Dangerous stuff, you know. So yeah, you know, that little flat, that moment there was the start of my last spree, which lasted, I don't know how long for, you know, 6 weeks maybe. You know, I lost a job, I couldn't work anymore, I was physically unable to work. You know, the book talks about our health dropping off like a ski jump, and that's really what happened. You know, in a very short period of time, I went from being looking physically okay and being able to sustain a job and personal relationships, and it just went bosh, and I would just drop. The weight come off me, I couldn't eat, I couldn't work, couldn't pay no bills. You know, I got evicted from the place I was, but they had to reinstate me through a little loophole, and started shoplifting. I've gone from spending all this money on alcohol and cocaine to shoplifting fillet steak and legs of lamb and selling them in the pub that was 3 or 4 doors down the road to earn a couple of quid just to be able to score, you know, just to fucking, what a mess I've made of my life. And yeah, I was in this little flat, and thought I was dying. Yeah, my throat had closed up. You know, I've been smoking fucking plastic off pipes and doing what we do, you know, like, I've got no money, nobody wants to be around me. You know, the quite successful user that I was when I was working, you know, drug addicts are a little bit fickle like that. They don't want to be around someone that's, you know, selling bits of cheese. You know, so yeah, I thought I was dying, and I did what I always did. I reached out to people in this room, You know, and it's quite fitting because the two men, you know, there's a group that I'm still a part of, and put on there, please help me. Yeah, and somebody got in touch with me, and you know, both of them are in this room today, you know. And I thought I was dying. My phone went dead, and the next morning when I kind of come around, got back on the phone, and within an hour, the two men were at my door. You know, and that's what this deal's about. You know, they was out there caring about me. You know, they come and they pulled me out of that house, and 6 days later I ended up in a treatment centre, and I don't really know how that happened because I was fucking skint. Yeah, I had nothing and no one other than this fellowship. And with odd or God or whatever, the universe, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, yeah, something was working within my life that landed me within that treatment centre. And I stayed there for 5.5 months, and then moved into a dry house, and you know, a man come into that treatment centre at 4.5 months, and he took me through the 12 steps of CA, and I left there. And I'm new because I've been around for a little while. You know, I've been around this fellowship now for nearly 6 years, and I'd seen what other people were doing, intensively working with other drug addicts, and that was it. You know, the process of the steps, you know, going through the rawness of a step 4 and then sharing that in a 5 and getting them blocked and seeing my part and stuff, and you know, the process of the steps sent me from selfish to selfless. That was simply what they did, what they did, and I couldn't help. It wasn't something that came from within me. It was something that I was just compelled to go and help other people. Yeah, as best as I could. You know, I ain't got all the answers, but you know, there's plenty of stuff within the big book. You know, it tells us how to approach and what the illness is of alcoholism, and I just set about trying to help, and I fucking got to 2 years clean, and I looked around at my life and was like, how the fucking hell did I get here? You know, I walked into a treatment centre with a bag of clothes that didn't fit, yeah, for 17 years hard work. That was what I had, yeah. I came to CA, and I had a lot of stuff. You know, a wife to be, a couple of kids in my life, a nice car, some good clothes, a nice house, a good job, yeah. And in the 2.5 years from me getting here to when I landed in treatment, relapse dismantled my life and stripped everything that I held dear from me. You know, and for me, that's what needed to happen. You know, and when I landed in that treatment centre, I just did as I was told. You know, and the people that generally are successful at this, and I mean as in find some freedom from relapse, generally the ones that do as they're told. Yeah. 2 years clean, I looked around and my life had rebuilt, and what had I done other than try as best as I can to intensively work with other drug addicts and help them perhaps find some freedom. But it's fucking savage, man. You know, the amount of people that I've sat down with and spoke to that are not here. Yeah, it's like, if you made it here, you're fucking really lucky. And if you stay, fucking hell, in the minority. Most people don't, you know. So yeah, I just, like I say, I've got family here. And I went up and just see my mum, and first of all I went to see my dad, because I can do that today, for no other reason than I just want to go and see my dad because I'm in the area, you know, and I go and I sit with him and he tells me about his stuff that he's got going on, and then I'll go, that's cool. And I'll go and see my mum, and And she talks about her stuff that she's got going on, and I don't want anything from her, I just want to know she's all right. And as I'm leaving, she puts her arm around me and says, "I'm proud of you." Fucking hell. That's very powerful words to come from my mum, you know, because I've caused a hell of a lot of damage. You know, a lot of damage. And yeah, really, it's my kids as well. You know, me not being there when I'm supposed to be happened too many times that I care to count, you know. I'm a present dad today, and I'm in their life, and that's a result of taking the 12 steps with Cocaine Anonymous, having a spiritual experience, and intensively working with others. Yeah, quit playing God, let someone else run the show. So yeah, there can be a life, you know, this can be a permanent solution. You know, certainly would like it to be, for me. You know, although I'm, you know, this relapse word can be a bit of a, you know, a dirty word, and it's right, you don't have to relapse when you come here, but many people do, you know, and it can be a permanent solution to relapse, what we do here. You know, I just look in the line of sponsorship that I'm in, and my sponsor's 5 years, his sponsor's 13 years, and his sponsor's 37 years. You know, that's fucking wow. You know, 37 years, he's been sober longer than I've been alive. Fucking mental, man. You know, when I look at what they're doing, just consistently going through the book with others. Mental, man. You know. So I'm really grateful, you know, really grateful to be here, and I just want to read a little bit of the big book just to end. It's just the first page of chapter 3, and yeah, it reminds me a little bit of me. So chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterised by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently maybe, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralisation. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which can make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there was brief recovery, followed always by still worse relapse. I'll leave it there. Thank you.